Mired in toxic partisanship, left versus right, us versus them. While we pay to keep our politicians fighting, how do we, the people, rise up and solve the great challenges of our time? We do it by embracing freedom and liberty. There may be no such thing as a free lunch, but this hour is as close as it gets. Welcome to A Free Solution.
All right, welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate y'all being here, listening in on the show today. We're live on WYSL until 1 p.m. That means that you listener can give us a call, participate in the show, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. Or listen online as well. Call in, comment, call in. I mean, do whatever you want online. I'm not the boss of you. But you can call in if you want to participate in the show, 585-346-3000, or that number I have ticking down at the bottom there of our live stream. If you're watching this on video, leave your comments. Shout out the line to our friends listening over at WACK out in Newark. Appreciate y'all being here as well. And folks listening on the podcast too. Wherever you're listening today, thank you for tuning in. And got a few things, unfortunately, we had technical difficulties on Monday, so wasn't able to do the live show Monday. But we do have a handful of things to talk about today because, we never got to talk about some of this stuff the other day. And so I'm back. All right. Speaking of technical difficulties, I got to stop talking with my hands, folks, because what I did is I just slapped my USB cable right out of my mic. It's a great day, folks. Great day. Listen, it's holiday week. And we all want to phone in a tiny bit, don't we? All right. I'm going to try to make sure I give you guys a good show, though, because, again, topics that I wanted to talk about this week. Now, so one of the things I want to talk about, though, is that there's something that caught my eye, and I had to read into this, understand what it was and everything. It's the something I saw it's happening in Elmira, New York, but I've seen it happen other places, too, where the police are buying Ring doorbell cameras for folks, right? And the agreement is that if you buy that, you agree to share footage of that Ring doorbell when they ask for it, right? Now, like some of the headlines when I first read it are like, oh, like the police are going to be able to just kind of look at your Ring doorbell and be able to access it anytime. I'm like, oh, wow, that's creepy. I gotta check into that. Is that what the actual agreement is? Or are you turning over your login information to the cops to be able to access anytime? And I don't know that that's a worthwhile trade-off. But no, that's not actually what's happening here. That was a little bit of a misleading or fake news. But it is an interesting question, right? Like, is this a trade-off that makes sense for communities that are seeing a rise in crime, right? Like where I live in Rochester, is there a significant enough rise in crime where you want more eyes on the street? Is it better if a lot of those are, private video cameras? And how does this help to actually reduce crime? Like, do eyes on the street, in the Jane Jacobs sense, if you ever read that, is that still apply when it's digitalized, right? And then I think back to some of my own personal experiences, right, of using my camera for stuff. Unfortunately, I've had my camera catch at least a couple crimes on it, and I've turned that footage over to police, and unfortunately, nothing has happened. One time, someone threw a brick through my window. Another time, and maybe they'll catch them, someone hit my car the other day. They just blew through a stop sign, smashed into it, but, not able to get any license plate out of that. But the idea behind these community initiatives, like what they're doing in Elmira, is that if someone commits a crime outside your home, and particularly a neighborhood where they're going after where a lot of violent crime might be happening, should you participate in this program? Should you turn over footage to police? Does it make sense for governments, police departments, to spend money to do this? Now, in cities like Rochester, of course, they have their own cameras too, not just the ring cameras and stuff like that. They have, their own cameras on the street. Actually, when I first moved to the city back in 2012, it creeped me out. I was like, why are there so many cameras everywhere? Why are those cameras up there? And I asked my wife, and fiance at the time, she's like, oh yeah, no, there's just video cameras. They have their police cameras. They're all over. I'm like, your neighborhood is filled with them. Like, I feel like I can't walk down a street without someone spying on me. It's weird. It felt like 1984. I don't like it. And at the same time, though, if it does help prevent, or not prevent, but if it does help catch people who are committing violent acts, is that a worthwhile trade-off? And again, love to hear from you on this. Give us a call, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. Or leave your comments online. Would you participate in a program like this? Again, in a situation like this, the person who has the ring camera, Don Elmira, they don't have to turn it over. The police can just say, hey, something happened outside of your house between this time and this time. Can you share this link with this section of footage? And they can ask that stuff of you right now, right? Like if the police know that I have a camera on my front door and something happened outside where they think they might be able to catch someone committing a violent act outside my house, and there's a camera pointing in that direction, they can politely ask me for that. And I guess that's fine if they're asking for me. What creeps me out is the idea is, when do we get to the point? Will we ever get to the point where that information is easily subpoenaed? And if we have eyes on literally every front door in the city, how does that impact behavior? How does that impact privacy? And if we have a government that can choose to punish us for any number of various laws that exist, some of which we don't even understand that we're breaking, does that increase the possibility of diminishing a free state? And part of me says, yeah, again, if we have cameras literally everywhere, we know that the federal government has, abused their surveillance powers in the past. And that if the government wants to go after you for committing a petty offense and make your life miserable, they can certainly do so. And I think of situations, I don't think that we're here or going to get here in the United States. I think of situations in other countries though, where it's like, it's illegal to go outside without a mask on during COVID times or, during quarantine. And then police can go and proactively search out that data and see you breaking the law in that sense. Again, we're not doing that in the United States, but in other countries, like, it's tough to even go walk around the block, and it has been in the past couple of years, tough to even go walk around the block and go outside your home during a lockdown situation. And so setting up the infrastructure, even if it's partially private, if the government can then create permissive warrants, where judges are willing to give permissive warrants to access that data and to go broader than what is really appropriate, then essentially the government has set up a panopticon. They're now able to watch everything all at once. It's not paranoid to think that. It's that, we now have a large interconnected internet of video surveillance that provides some private uses. Again, I use security cameras at my house too. That could be searched. That could be, that someone can issue a warrant for that and take that footage if I had it. But is that worth the trade-off? Is it worth the spying that takes place or could potentially take place in that, if it does mean being able to capture more violent criminals? And I don't want to ignore that point. And that's why this city in Elmira is doing that. So again, leave your comments. Would you participate in a program like this? Give us a phone call. Give us a call, 585-346-3000. 585-346-3000. If you would participate or not participate in this type of thing, is it worth getting the free camera? Again, the ring cameras kind of creep me out. I didn't want to go with those. I went with another one. But a lot of people like them. A lot of people swear by them. And, again, I've had packages stolen. I've had bikes stolen. I've had someone hit my car. I've had someone hit my, throw a brick through my window. It would be great to catch those folks just that security camera hasn't helped me yet. It's mostly just had me looking frustrated at this person who did this thing and being like, well, wish I could do something about this. And maybe though, if you're able to get some violent criminals off the street, and I mean, if it was just used for that narrow purpose, someone who shot someone who beat someone up, someone who hurt someone in another way, like maybe that's worth it. But I do not like cameras being absolutely everywhere. All right, when we come back though, I'm gonna move on from this topic. Unless you guys call in, again, 585-346-3000. Gonna be talking about some Omicron shutdown type of stuff, whether or not we're actually doing that. We'll be back here on A Free Solution in just a few minutes.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at SimpleTech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, SimpleTech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Inside the Taylor Laboratories.
Hey, Tony, what you doing?
A little experiment, Zach. Look what I have under the microscope.
Ugh, what's that?
A sample of indoor air.
How can it be that dirty? Don't AC and furnace filters help?
Only with dust, Zach. But when Taylor installs a whole house APCO air purifier to detox the air, odors, chemicals, mold, bacteria, and viruses are removed.
For clean indoor air.
Yep. Ain't science awesome?
Taylor, 500 help.
As a veteran of the United States military, I can finally get the opportunity to enjoy special events, things that we couldn't afford, thanks to VetTix. Every empty seat at a concert, a game, or a play is a missed opportunity to say thanks to a veteran and service member. We can give our veterans a special event where they too can create their own cherished memories. Visit vettix.org. Find out how you can make a difference in a veteran's life.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
A free solution.
All right, welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, we're live on WISL until 1 p.m. Give us a call, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. Or leave us a comment if you want to participate in the show. And it sounds like we do have a comment from Nathan here. Says, I understand thinking, but I wouldn't be part of a program like that. I'm pro-police, but I know how things like this go when the government gets a hold of them. I mean, that's kind of like my thoughts on this too, right? Like, you know, I want to find ways to reduce violent crime. You know, this is something that like isn't abstract for me. It isn't abstract for my neighbors in the city. Like, a couple blocks down the road, and sometimes even in my neighborhood, violent crime happens. And if someone is doing that sort of stuff, even within the libertarian framework, there needs to be some semblance of justice and some semblance of protection for people who are subject to this, right? And so thinking about the best ways to solve that, I don't know. Again, if you are able to maintain your rights in having private security, if you're able to do that and whatnot, that's great. I'm creeped out when you have a large internet connected system like the Amazon Ring system, especially with some of these big companies that, people tend to think of these big companies as like, at least on the left and sometimes in the populist right, as being like immune from the government being able to go after them. But in many ways it's even easier for the government to go after and pressure them to cave on things like encryption and data sharing and pressuring them to get warrants, because they're so interconnected with federal regulations. They have, especially someone like Amazon, which has its hands in so many different things. Could Amazon be pressured to share this data if they're maintaining any of that? And I don't fully know how Amazon's like data maintenance on like Ring security footage works, but like if they were storing that on their servers, could they be pressured to share that with local, state, federal police officials or anyone else? That's that's a tough question. I think as we continue to have these like interconnected devices, like we're going to have to figure out an answer. And I don't know what that's going to look like. I did want to shift topics a little bit, though, just because it's something that it's come up for me. It's come up with for friends of mine. And I have a kind of a personal rant to go on related to this subject. But, I saw the clips of Joe Biden's speech the other day, and he says that, schools must stay open. Which sounds great, right? Like he's pointing out that, we have learned a lot about how COVID interacts generally, specifically how it interacts with children. He's pointing out, like, if you 5 to 11-year-olds can get vaccinated now, that's allowed. That's approved by the FDA. We have masking, we have ventilation. In fact, the federal government has spent something like 197 billion plus on making sure that schools are able to do things to help prevent the spread of COVID, in their buildings, right? And with all that in mind, we're still seeing a lot of school closures, and we'll talk about some of the reasons behind that. And if you're someone who is either a teacher or a parent or administrator participating in these the decisions about school closures or being affected by them, would love to hear from you. Again, 585-346-3000. But is the Omicron surge, which is definitely happening, right? There are more people getting sick, especially in the Northeast, right? It seems like COVID might be a seasonal thing, right? Like it might jump up in Florida in the summer when everyone's inside in the AC, and in the winter might jump up when everyone's inside in the Northeast, like here in New York. But let me, like quote Joe Biden for a second. It says, look, the science is clear and overwhelming. We know how to keep our kids safe from COVID-19 in school. K through 12 schools should be open. Their safety is increased if schools require all adults who work in the schools to get vaccinated and take the safety measures that the CDC has recommended, including masking. Says Congress passed billions of dollars in improvement, ventilation, social distancing. Schools should be safe, right? And again, I'm going to set aside all the policy issues mentioned there, the vaccinations, but just that, okay, like if we accept that face value that the federal government and the state government's intention was to do these things, why aren't schools staying open, right? There's a couple of things behind that. One is, governments can't. This is really important. I think Tim and I talked about this the other day too. Governments can't mandate outcomes. They can only mandate incentives and punishments, right? And so this is a way that they're hoping that they mandate the outcomes. Schools stay open, right? But what the actual result is, well, now the schools have all this money, and there's still complicated incentives for schools to not stay open, right? I want to talk about that because, what's happening in some of these cases, like if you're listening to WISL, one of the local schools up here, like I think it's Pittsford, is going to have like a closure day, and several other schools are in my area are closing down for a day because of staff shortages. And some of that is related to, people actually getting sick, right? And then not being able to bus students to school or not being able to cover classrooms and stuff like that. Some of that's related to the way the testing requirements have worked, even with like vaccinated exposures sometimes in schools. And both these things end up being really frustrating on parents. Again, now that I experienced this, not that my kid's in public school is like a private daycare thing, but like if your kid's suddenly like out for 10 days because they were exposed to COVID and you got to be at work, that is really tough to deal with. I know you got to take care of your kid. Boo-hoo. I mean, like school does feel like daycare sometimes, but like it is a tough thing to deal with. When you're paying for this thing, you have to pay for this thing, and suddenly you can't do that. And so like, why are these schools closing? I mean, part of it's that they either just haven't for a variety of reasons, or can't for a variety of reasons, or don't want to for a variety of reasons update the infrastructure to make schools a bit safer. Sometimes they have, sometimes they haven't. Other times it's that there's an abundance of caution happening. And there's some evidence too in some districts that like suddenly extra school closure days seem to happen around weekends and holidays and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, that's weird that that's happening, but it could be that a handful of people are calling out and suddenly you don't have enough people to actually staff the school and meet the state regulations that you have to meet. And so school's closed. Sorry, parents, if you planned on working or doing something else that day, school's closed. You got to have your kid there. The other thing related to that too is because of like, despite the fact that, we have testing available in some places, schools still struggle with test to stay. And I'm glad to see that starting to change. Right. And so that's a good thing, right? I think, you should be able to test, ideally using a rapid test, because they're actually in some ways better than the PCR test. You should be able to test. And if the kid tests negative, you should be able to stay in school. Great. The problem is though, like when you get all these exposures and you have these test to stays, like I'm hearing stories from parents and again, seeing on social media too, about, okay, now the kid is getting exposed, once every couple weeks, and for 4, 5, 6, 7-year-olds having to do one of those tests where they have a thing shoved up their nose. I don't like it. It's terrible. It's traumatizing. It's hurtful to them. And I get, this is stuff that we're doing to intend to keep people safe. But at the same time, at what point in time when you have kids who are masked, vaccinated, socially distanced in a building where we spent billions of dollars to make sure there's adequate ventilation, how often do we have to make sure that these kids aren't sick and test them over and over again, especially given the outcomes that we know about how COVID affects kids these days, which isn't to say that this isn't serious and that doesn't affect some kids in a very serious way. But are we going to keep sticking stuff up kids' noses over and over again and having them stay out of school and not be able to see their friends? Is this a system that works? Is it something that we're going to do forever? When do we cross the line of understanding this as an endemic disease? And, we're already starting to see, like, maybe there's more mild cases. A lot of people who aren't necessarily reporting their numbers to their county health agencies. An interesting chart that I saw the other day is that they're seeing more uptick in like the wastewater. Actually, they're figuring out, what is what areas are seeing uptick in COVID, and it doesn't necessarily match anymore what's being reported to county numbers. Okay, so if everyone is getting it, a mild form, asymptomatic form, the parts that we know about, the getting vaccinated, there's all these different things. When do we start treating this as this is just something we're going to have to deal with every year like the flu? There's going to be bad years, less bad years. When do we get back to normal? Again, I know it's serious. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. We're going to be back in just a few minutes. See you soon.
Fly the flag, stand for freedom. AM 1040 Avon Rochester, FM 92.1 Rochester, and FM 95.5 Spencerport.
Here's the latest forecast from the News 10 NBC Weather Center for tonight. We'll see mostly cloudy skies, breezy and cold. Some local lake effect snow showers will be possible as well. Could bring some minor accumulations towards the morning. So have to keep an eye out for a little bit of snow early on Thursday, maybe an inch or two in some spots. Temperatures tonight in the 20s. On Thursday, morning lake flakes will give way to a mostly cloudy, quiet afternoon with temps in the 30s. I'm Rich Cornelia, WYSL.
Tour the days before Christmas. You can tell by the sound. The face is so nuts, just fast food can be found. Shopping, the school play, decorations, and snow. For quality family food, where can you go? When what to your wondering eyes should appear but a juicy Wahlburger, a frosty root beer, handmade ice cream, crispy fries, even Waldo. Too busy to sit there? Then get it to go. And since Tom Wall's quality and value are things you can see, now you can get home to put up that tree. Tom Wall's wishes your family a season of cheer, a wonderful holiday, and a tasty new year. But just as you're settling tonight in your bed, hark! What's that sound that you hear overhead?
Oh, Merry Christmas to all, and make no mistake, it's not a hamburger, it's Tom Wall's ground steak.
A holiday greeting from Tom Wall's family to yours. 9 locations in the metro.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
This is Bob Lucky, Western New York correspondent for News 1040 AM. From Batavia to Niagara Falls, Buffalo to Jamestown, if it happens in Western New York, you'll hear about it on News 1040 AM.
Here's an important announcement from the Livingston County Department of Health and Livingston Office for the Aging. The following COVID-19 vaccine clinics will be held during the month of December. Booster dose Pfizer vaccine will be administered Tuesday, December 28th from 1:30 to 2:30. Pfizer vaccines available for 16 and older. Moderna must be at least 18. These clinics will be at 2 Murray Hill and Mount Morris and will be drive-through. Register online and Google the Livingston County Health Department. If you're 60 or older and need a COVID-19 vaccine, the Livingston County Office for the Aging can help. Call 243-7520. If you need a ride to get a vaccine, they can help. If you're homebound and would like a home vaccination, call 243-7270. From the Livingston County Department of Health, with support by Livingston County Office for the Aging.
All Seasons Wine and Spirits, East Main Street, Avon has a great selection of flavored liqueurs, including the ever-popular eggnog varieties. Get yours before they're gone. All Seasons Wine and Spirits has the area's largest selection of New York State wines. Save 10% on a case of wine. You can mix and match. Open daily. All Seasons Wine and Spirits, East Main Street, Avon.
My name is Dr. Dina Porterfield, president of Roberts Wesleyan College and Northeastern Seminary. We celebrate the hope we receive through the birth of Christ, the promise of peace that he brings, and the new life we receive through him. I pray this holiday season you have the opportunity to be with family and friends, but most of all, to remember Christ's birth and the gift he gave through his life. Merry Christmas and happy holiday from Roberts Wesleyan College.
While many local collision and repair shops have been gobbled up by national chains with their impersonal touch, Flower City Collision remains locally owned and operated. The shop was started by a local veteran who taught his son Zach the basics in customer service and providing customers value. Flower City doesn't work with a specific insurance company. They want to be your advocate. If you need a repair, reach out to Zach at Flower City Collision in Henrietta. He will work with your national insurance company on your local behalf to ensure you get the repair you need done right.
A free solution.
Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, we're here live at WYSL this beautiful Wednesday until 1 p.m. Give us a call, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. Shout out a line to our friends listening over at WACK out in Newark, and our friends listening online at A Free Solution Facebook page, Free Solution YouTube channel, the Kevin Wilson pages, or the Free Solution group too, wherever you're listening today, or on the podcast too. Appreciate y'all being here. And just wrapping up some of the Omicron school shutdown stuff. I'll get to a couple comments from Tim. He says, if we accept the premise that COVID is dangerous for kids, then test to say is okay. I mean, like it is sort of, right? Like we should try to stop the spread of illness, right? Like it's just that we've learned different things about what works, what doesn't, what's useful, what isn't. It's just that the knowledge that we apply to that situation is more built on partisanship. If you're a Democrat, then there's no action you can take that will keep us safe enough, and shutting down schools is acceptable, or putting schools in a lockdown state is acceptable forever and ever. Now, I'm exaggerating like slightly on that. And then for Republicans and some other folks who say this isn't real, it is real. It is something that's happening, and unfortunately I have a lot of friends and family who are sick with COVID right now, in some cases very seriously sick. I don't want to dismiss what's happening here. Tim, I got to roast you. It says we'll be stuck in this pandemic till Pfizer says we're done. I mean, no, come on, man. Don't be, I think you're like half joking, but like, don't be ridiculous with that stuff. And it's not fair because you're not on the show for you to talk back to me. But, like that type of stuff, like it is really happening to folks, right? Like there are people I'm genuinely worried about right now who are sick with COVID, and I hope that they're going to be okay. But it's going to be done kind of when not Pfizer, but kind of when the rest of us decide that the risk of COVID and the ways in which we have to protect ourselves are in balance for us to be able to return to normal lives. And I think that the government's going to follow the people's lead on that, in both directions, right? People get more nervous, then the state is going to put more restrictions. If people are like, well, I think actually if I'm vaccinated, if I'm wearing a certain type of mask, if I'm doing other things, then I can safely do these activities. If I'm outside doing stuff, then I can safely do these activities. And okay, that's the trade-off. That's what freedom means. Again, and I'll say it's about like things like mask mandates too, right? Like, okay, cool, we have a mask mandate. You have to wear a type of mask to go in somewhere, but if you're wearing a mask that's basically useless, and I don't mean the joke masks from the people who are rule breakers or whatever, I don't mean that stuff, or the people, I mean like the thin cloth mask, that they ain't really doing all that much. If you're wearing a thin cloth mask and you're going into like a small room to have a meeting for 2 hours, then you're not really doing anything useful there. At that point, you're just virtue signaling, but you can inform yourself. You can go and look up the masks that actually work over a certain period of time, but after a while, like, they stop working in a room because eventually enough stuff's going to leak out to put yourself at risk. You can figure this stuff out on your own, and you don't have to do what the government tells you. You don't have to do the opposite of what the government tells you. You can think for yourself on this stuff. That's what drives me nuts on, on this stuff. And Yeah, Timmy says Pfizer says we're going to be stuck in the pandemic until 2024. I'm just paraphrasing them. I mean, I have no idea if that's true or not. Like maybe, I mean, like that might be a scientist throwing out a guess. I don't necessarily take that too seriously either. Like maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Maybe by like summer next year, like everyone just kind of says, nope, good enough. There's probably going to be boosters every year in the same way you have a flu shot every year. It's not going to be called a booster anymore. It's going to be like your annual COVID shot. If you want to get it, it'll protect you from the latest variant. Maybe. I think that's what the future looks like for that. Now, whether or not we're going to still require vaccines to go in everywhere, I don't know. I don't think they'll stay around forever. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I say it won't stay around forever, but, you know, I also look at like what the TSA has done, and you know, we still have all that stuff, despite the fact that like it's mostly security theater. So we'll see. But small rant on the school things, right? Because I've seen like these stories go around social media again, sometimes from people I know well, sometimes people I don't. I've heard people talk about it. You know, every once in a while, like people start talking about like their kids' experience in schools. A lot of times it's COVID related because that's what's on their mind. Either like they're stuck home, you know, not sick, but they were exposed, but now they have to be quarantined for a while, or they have to test again, and their kids don't like that. And then, you know, they'll get into other stuff about like, you know, violence that happens in school, some of the indifference they see from administrators, and even, you know, when there's great teachers in their child's life, there's also terrible teachers as well, and it's hard to control who is going to be leading the classroom that your child is in. And they'll tell me all this stuff, and they'll tell me about like how terrible this experience was. And again, it's not to say that every public school experience is terrible, but they'll tell me about how terrible some of this stuff was. And they'll mention like, yeah, you know, for reasons like that, I'm considering homeschooling. You know, like I that's why I'm gonna like look into, you know, when my kid's that old. And they're like, oh wow, homeschooling, whoa, that's kind of for crazy people. You just spent, I don't know, the last half hour telling me about, you know, sometimes I tell these folks this, other people, I'm just like, okay, sure, whatever. And I walk away. I don't feel like having that conversation anymore, right? I'm like, I'm not going to have an argument with you. But, you know, if you just spent the last half an hour telling me about what a terrible experience your kid had, and like telling me about, like, again, some of the violence they've experienced in school, sometimes, you know, they're not able to get anything done about it. The kid's being bullied. They feel like they're fighting with the school to make sure that their kid can just feel safe in that classroom, or they're feeling like just the opposite sometimes, where they feel like the kid feels like they're in prison going to school because it's so locked down. You tell me all this stuff, all these ways in which it sounds like a terrible experience, and then I'm the crazy one for not wanting to put my kid through that. I'm the one who's like, oh, the weirdo for being like, you know, maybe I don't have to go through the public school system. And, you know, particularly where I live, like maybe it doesn't make sense to do that, that I want to go and find a different way to educate my child in the future, where I can go and maybe, I don't know, find a teacher, build a homeschooling pod, and have my kid be able to hang out with a handful of other kids learning in an education curriculum that we have a bit more control over. Like I've gone on this rant slightly before, right? Like that's what I see as the future of education. But like, it's wild to me, like the Stockholm syndrome that exists in some of these situations. And we're seeing like a big exodus from the public school system because of that. And again, I'm not throwing teachers under the bus, because a lot of teachers are upset with this too, and they want to find, you know, cool, innovative ways to get out of like the public school system and be able to focus on what's important, which is educating children, right? It's just something it's just come up a few times for me lately. And if any folks out there are homeschooling their kids or considering that, like I am, you know, get my kid's not even a year old yet, so I'm a ways off from this thing. But like the Stockholm syndrome that exists, where I tell people that like this is an option I'm considering, given the state of public schools now, and not knowing how much different that's going to be several years from now, that I want to start researching this right away. It blows my mind that people are like, you're crazy for not wanting to put your kid in that public school system. No, it's crazy to keep doing that if you have the means to get out of it. And I know not everyone does, but if you have the means to get out of it and you know this is happening, why wouldn't I choose a different option for my child to give them the best shot at learning and having a successful future? Why wouldn't I do everything that I could to give them the best chance at success? I know it's just, I'm sure many of you have experienced the same thing before. You've thought about this. Again, I had a fine public school experience. It was okay. Not perfect. It was okay. No, I'm not bashing. If you like public school, great. Not bashing the teachers. A lot of teachers work super hard in that system. But I look at like where I live and what I would have to do in the city of Rochester and what that school's like. And I'm like, I don't know if that's the best thing for my family. And I feel bad for the families who don't have any other choice. I do wonder, like, how do we make sure that they can do better? And that's my slight rant. Just the COVID stuff inspired that. The school staying open inspired that. But it's been bugging the heck out of me the last few weeks because I've heard it so many times. And if you're the one who had that conversation with me, yes, I am talking about you. All right, thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. Appreciate y'all being here. Again, we're live to 1, so give us a call, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Need help with health insurance? The Greece Regional Chamber provides assistance with health insurance for businesses, nonprofits, families, and individuals throughout our region. We pride ourselves on the personalized service that we provide for our clients. Let us help you find health insurance plans that fit your needs and navigate the paperwork. Greece Chamber Benefit Partners, located at 2402 Westridge Road in Rochester, New York, offers a broad range of medical insurance plans for businesses, nonprofits, individuals, and families throughout the greater Rochester Finger Lakes region, working with insurance companies including Excellus Blue Cross Blue Shield, Univera, and MVP Healthcare. We can also help you access insurance plans through the New York State of Health, the official health plan marketplace. Again, you do not need to live or work in Greece to utilize our brokerage services. We serve the greater Rochester Finger Lakes region of New York State. Visit greecechamber.org to sign up for one of our free health insurance information sessions or schedule an appointment with one of our licensed brokers. Call 585-227-7272. 585-227-7272.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at SimpleTech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, SimpleTech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
A free solution.
Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson today. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. We're live till 1 p.m. Give us a call, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. We got just this one segment left. And I want to get to a new topic. I've been meaning to get to it for like, I don't know, whatever, like a week now. And we got talking about other things. It happens. I'll talk about the Julian Assange thing because Julian Assange, y'all know who he is by now, right? So he last week? Yeah, I think it was last week. The United Kingdom, where he is, he's in, you know, the embassy in Ecuador there, said that he could be extradited to the United States to face prosecution by the Department of Justice. Again, Julian Assange, of course, had provided or had in the allegation of the Department of Justice basically induced Chelsea Manning to get classified documents that were then published by, you know, WikiLeaks, right? So they're kind of treating this Julian Assange like he's a traitor. Now the question becomes, you know, is Julian Assange acting as a journalist in this case? And should the government of the United States choose to define journalism in a way that only protects specific actions for either specific publishers or specific stories that come out? What is protected by the role of journalism? Again, what they're saying is he's not a journalist. That what he did, what he published, was not done in the name of journalism, the same way as what well, I mean, the U.S. government doesn't like this. I was gonna use like Glenn Greenwald and what he did with the Edward Snowden stuff, but they didn't really like that. It's tougher to make the case against him, Glenn Greenwald, because of course he was at a, you know, legitimate publication. He was at the Guardian at the time, you know, well-known newspaper, and Julian Assange, though, WikiLeaks, they collect information, they publish it. You get to decide whether or not it's true or not. You get to decide, you know, what to do with that. But in the case of what was published from Chelsea Manning, you know, it's undeniably true, right? It's you know, there's definitely like war crimes that happen. There's things like drone footage and other footage from Iraq and Afghanistan that was published in those papers, and you know, it was showing criminal acts by the United States, and Chelsea Manning published those because she felt like that stuff needed to get out. The world needed to know what happened, that there was an injustice that occurred, and the best thing that we could do to make sure that we don't do that again is to bring those things to light. And I think undoubtedly what Chelsea Manning did was like criminal, right? I mean, like, you're a whistleblower, right? But like, you get it, you know, like, I get that it breaks the laws that exist, and whether or not Chelsea Manning should be, I think like if you're exposing criminal behavior, there should be whistleblower protection for that stuff. But I get that needed to be investigated and gone through, right? Like, releasing classified documents is a big deal if you are, you know, in either an active, you know, service role or a contractor for the U.S. government. I get that's a big deal, right? And if they're doing it to expose a crime, there should be protections for that. But I get that's a big deal. What absolutely should be allowed, though, is if someone brings those documents that are, you know, in the public interest, that expose crimes of the government or the military or any other, you know, branch of the government, then that should be protected. That is free speech. The government doesn't define what journalism or the press is specifically, because we need to be able to talk about those things openly and without fear of reprisal. If we set up that the government can define what journalism is or isn't, and who is and isn't a journalist, then we make it so that government can narrowly define who is able to talk about them legally. You know, do I make the cut for journalists? No, and I don't consider myself a journalist, but you know, if I were to have someone on my show and to use my platform to like get information to expose crimes, that is and ought to be a protected activity if I did pursue that type of work. In the same way, you know, and no, folks don't always agree with what Julian Assange is doing, but the free spread of information, particularly when it comes to things that may or may not be crimes, is important. And, you know, and I have no idea what their vetting process is, you know, but, and I know some people didn't like, you know, how they may or may not have gotten like emails related to the DNC stuff, but okay. Right. But like, is that still in the public interest? If they get that stuff, you know, even if they're asking, you know, folks to get that, isn't that in the public interest to know and evaluate that information? We can look at that and say, well, that's either fake or that doesn't matter or whatever, but that's not for the state to decide. The state doesn't get to cover up the sketchy behavior of its own, actors and participants, and then say, well, look, it's not really in the public interest and nothing to see here, and you don't get to know this stuff, and if you publish that, that's a crime. That creates a society that is very dangerous. It creates a society that where the state can get away with all sorts of crimes as long as it's able to only allow perhaps friendly journalists to talk about what they've done. And and this is what tin pot regimes do all the time too. They like the United States is remarkable for the amount of freedom. And as much as I criticize the U.S. government, the United States is remarkable for the amount of freedom that does have. There are other countries where you do have like journalistic licenses and approval by the state, right? And they do this to crack down on fake information, right? Like they say, well, if we didn't approve this stuff, if we didn't make sure that only good news sources with integrity are allowed to have access to the public airwaves and have access to any resources that they consider the public domain, then people would be able to spread lies, and that could cause all sorts of damage and destruction and whatnot, right? And that's the road that I worry both Republicans and Democrats going on. You see the Democrats who've been freaking out about fake news stuff. What's great about the Julian Assange thing is it's bipartisan. Now, I saw this article that said, well, Donald Trump was considering pardoning Julian Assange. Oh, he considered it. Woo. All right. Like, he doesn't get any brownie points for like considering doing the right thing. You only get points for actually doing the right thing. He could have done it. He was in the office 4 years. He could have done the right thing with any number of other people. Could have done it with Edward Snowden too, who exposed the crimes of the NSA spying on us, violating our Fourth Amendment rights. But no, he didn't do that. But the Biden administration, he's carrying on the legacy of the Obama administration and doubling down on this. Going to prosecute Julian Assange. There's not going to be any clemency. There's not going to be any mercy here. So you're going to get the book thrown at him because they're mad. Because they were personally attacked. Again, DNC was personally attacked, but they're personally attacked, in the sense that this did happen. I think the actual Chelsea Manning stuff happened at the end of the Bush administration, but the Obama administration really wanted to go hard on this. And again, with Donald Trump saying he considered pardoning Julian Assange, his director to CIA considered having a gun battle in the streets of London in order to get this dude out. I don't take any of his I'm really fighting the deep state stuff seriously. It ain't happening. It's not true. Let's come on. So with all this stuff, keep an eye on it. I know it kind of gets washed over in the Omicron news. And I don't think that's intent. That's not a conspiracy to say Omicron is distracting us from important stuff, but it's more that the Omicron stuff is more personal. It's more relatable. It's going to suck up more of the news coverage, but this type of stuff going on in the background with Julian Assange and with other movements on the violations of our liberties and our rights, we still need to pay attention to that. Fortunately, we have to look at and juggle multiple priorities and continue to advocate for protection of free speech and journalism in the United States, because although we are much better than many other places, we have to constantly advocate for and fight for those rights because it can go away. Almost happened in the founding period. It can happen now. If we don't be vigilant about this and constantly protect our rights, all of them, then they can go away at any time. We just got to get the wrong politicians in office and the right motivations and let that slip through. And then we're in real trouble. Once those rights start going away, there'll be a domino effect. It's huge. Let's hold on to that. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. If you don't hear from me, Merry Christmas, everyone. Have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon. Take care.
Flooring in your home?